trying to wake up here so I do this Sunday night chat for you guys. Do a little walk around the neighborhood here. How's it going? Sunday night chat. It's been a while. You saw the beginning of this here. I did a little walk. I just got back. Like a solid 40 minutes of a fast-paced walk there. That's got to be about 3 miles, right? Funny thing walking around here. I've been walking this route for 30 years, and there were times in my life here, years, where I did that daily, or at least 5 times a week. And then it's changed over the years, and I'll do it for a couple days, or I'll do it a few times a week. Won't do it for months, and it really has been quite some time. It's probably been over a month since I've done that walk. And it hit me while I was doing the walk. I need to be doing the walk more. I need to be doing everything more. I can't be preaching to you guys to get off your fat asses if I'm not getting off my fat ass and doing something. That would make me a hypocrite. Don't want to be a hypocrite. So, yeah, it's funny. Then I had this thought about that too. You know, like a hypocrite's would be, you know, like a famous actor that talks crap about Americans owning firearms, but you know they've made millions of dollars off of being in movies where they're wielding firearms and just blowing away people. That's a hypocrite. Don't want to be associated with that behavior. I used to, on one of my old hard drives somewhere, I'm sure the pictures still exist, I used to hunt those pictures down. I remember I had this picture of Whoopi Goldberg, you know, firing a gun. And I always thought that'd be an interesting t-shirt. Putting these ultra, like, ridiculous people that are hypocrites on t-shirts in that way. Like, with a firearm. Definition of a hypocrite. But I don't really care about that much. Here come the military helicopters on cue. I can tell that's what it is from the sound of it. It almost sounds like it has 2 props to it. They fly around here a lot. I didn't know what I wanted to talk about this week. I'll be honest with you. I had a lot of these ideas because it was a weird week. And I was kind of tired this weekend. I wanted to work yesterday at the shop, but I just kind of wore out. Working physically is a thing, and that's what I do. But when you're working furniture, it's a different thing. Like I'm doing a lot of hand work, and you know, it could be 6 hours. I don't really break. I don't take breaks. So I work. I might take a minute or 2 here and there. It's rare. I just keep working. So, you know, you get, you know, a few hours in the morning, a couple hours here and there, and then you come back, and then it's just working. You know, until you get to a stopping point. You've achieved this spot and you're done. But it's hours of just moving, and working this stuff. And it's a workout for that long. It's like being in the gym. I haven't done that in a while. I ain't getting any younger, in case you can't tell. It's amazing to me. I did pour myself a drink. It's the first drink I've had since last week. I'll touch on that for you. I got a lot of questions from people on my friend who visited and all that. Want to mention the project real quick because somebody made a comment. Your wood joints are going to crack. No, they are not. For those of you that don't know, I'm working on a pedestal table made in walnut. There's a field of boards, and then there's a frame around it. So 2 of those frame parts are going in the same direction as the grain, and you do run into problems sometimes on the parts that are there that run the opposite direction of the grain that the field is in. But there are ways to keep that from happening, and the main one, which I did, well, the main one is selecting the proper material. If you're working with hardwoods, harder wood moves less. Softer wood moves more. The guy who made the comment, I looked at his page, I think he's on Instagram, and I looked at what he does, and he makes tables. There's a lot of tables there, but they're very rudimentary. It's just glue-ups with metal bases. There's nothing, I'm not knocking it. But I didn't even see him do any breadboard edges on there. A breadboard edge is when you have a bunch of boards glued next to each other, and then you cap the end with a piece that goes in the opposite direction. The way that you want to do that is you create a tongue and groove like what I did on this, and you fit that breadboard edge on, and then you peg it. It limits the width, how much the width can move on that, but it can still kind of move a little bit if it needs to. I've done this method many times over the years. I've never had anybody complain to me that something broke apart. And in this case, it's pretty thick, and I milled it over the course of a month. So as I milled the wood, we had a lot of changes in the atmosphere here, in the weather. We had a lot of rain. As you guys might know, I lost like 3 weeks of time to rain because I kind of have an open air shop. I'm not going to get into it, but I can't really work there when it's raining. But there's plenty of moisture in there. And that stuff moved quite a bit, and I got it to the point where it won't move anymore, even if it is exposed to moisture. I milled the movement out of it. Again, it's a hardwood, and I'm golden. And at the corners, I mitered it, and I put butterfly mortises, which is like a bow tie shape, 2 opposing triangles. It's a mechanical fastener. Those joints cannot pull apart now because the butterflies are in there. So I'm pretty confident about it. We'll see. Putting that aside, the walk was funny. I don't know if I mentioned it. I did this little walk here, and I'm seeing a lot of new people around. I've been doing this walk, like I said, like 30 years, and there's a lot of young people with money now in the neighborhood, and a lot of kids, and people are interesting, the psychology of pedestrians on the street. This is not the city here. This is like a suburb, basically. You're in the city. Los Angeles is nothing but a bunch of giant suburbs. And there's different types of people. There's types of people where you look up and they see you coming and they cross the street. And then there's people, most people, when they walk by you, they say hello or they smile. I always give them the Tom Selleck smile, I want to go overboard. A lot of times I'm in my own thoughts. So somebody's coming, but I got something else going on, and all of a sudden we're crossing paths, and they're like, hi, and I'm like, oh, hey, hi, how are you? Good, I'm very polite. And then there's the people who you see them coming, and because I look at everybody, as I'm walking up to them, I will look up and look at them in the face, a little smile, let them know everything's okay. But there's the people that will walk by you, but they just stare straight ahead, like they don't want to engage. Those people are funny to me. It's just interesting to me. But the neighborhood's really changing here. There's a lot of money here. There's a lot of Teslas, and you walk by people's houses, and there's these Ring cameras that come on warning you you're on camera. And they had to do that because there's package thefts and people breaking into cars, stealing cars. All that stuff's been going on. And then the other thing this has been happening for a while, but now I guess it's just acceptable, are the people walking on the sidewalk. I guess they got earbuds in, and they're having a conversation out loud. And it's, they're loud, and they're just having a conversation with nobody. You can't see anybody there. In the old days, they would throw a net over you for doing that, for walking around talking to yourself. Now everybody's just talking on the phone, and it's perfectly acceptable. It's almost rude. Because, it's my complaint, my pet peeve about when I'm hiking and people are, they got their music playing on those speakers. It's so friggin' annoying. Anyhow, another thing I want to just bring up. I'm on the fence about doing everything I'm doing here on this channel, talking. Because believe it or not, I actually don't like talking about myself that much. I know a bunch of people are saying, what a load of crap that is. It's the truth. I don't like doing that. But that's the nature of this beast. I'm forced to because you guys keep asking me questions. So I'm just addressing the questions. And it made me think. I thought about this on the walk here because I always wanted to do the comedy thing. I'm finally working on it. Finally writing these things down and working stuff out. And one of the things that kept me from pursuing that, like actually putting the work in for years, was the idea of you got to say the same thing over and over again and make it seem like the first time every time. And I can do that, which was another subject I was going to get into today. Was when I first came here and I was doing the acting thing. I did theater in college in New Jersey. And then I came out here and I got into that and I studied in Beverly Hills and all that. And I'm good at that, and I can say the same thing 10 different ways or the same way and make it seem like the first time every time. But the idea of that for years in my mind seemed boring. I just didn't want to do it, man. But because of this, I've become more comfortable with that notion. And that's part of the reason. The other thing was, as I've probably mentioned before, I didn't want to do it while my mother was still alive, because I knew that I would have to, you reveal a lot about yourself personally if you're going to do comedy. I knew I'd be talking about my childhood and my mother and everything else, but that bitch wouldn't fucking die. She just held on, man. And I used to joke with her about that. I'd make that joke with her and she'd chuckle about it. But it was the truth, Jesus. So when I eventually get up, that's going to be part of the joke, because I know I look like an old guy and it's weird for people to start at an old age. So that's just a funny thing there. But that came up because I started thinking about this past week. There's so many little things happen this week. I didn't know what to talk to you guys about. For instance, there's this thing happening on Instagram and other social media, Facebook, where you're friends with somebody, and then all of a sudden you'll get a friend's request from that person. Now, sometimes I'll reach out to that person. I'll say, hey, man, I got a friend's request from you. Sometimes somebody will tell me, oh, that's a second account I set up. Like it's a safety account for them in case their account falls apart or whatever. But that's rare. Most of the time, they didn't know about it. And that's happened a lot, actually, this week with a few different people in both Instagram and Facebook. But one of them is this guy in his 70s who's a waterman. He's a badass surfer, architect, real nice guy. I didn't know him coming up. He's from my hometown in Seaside. And surfboard shaper, Richard Luthringer is his name. And I met him really for the first time years ago. I don't know how many years ago. 4 years ago, something like that. When I was home, people have been telling me, you got to meet Richard, because of what I do. And I was at my buddy's bait and tackle shop, Betty and Nick's Bait and Tackle, John Bouchel. Great place, good restaurant. On Central Ave, between 8th and 9th, on the bay side of Central Ave. Stop in and see him. Tell him Mike Z sent you. You'll see my stickers on the door. John saw Richard in there. Hey, that's Richard Luthringer. So I went and talked to him, dropped some names, and he asked me to do some work at his house, which I did. And then he asked me if I'd be willing to come back the following year and go to upstate New York and work on an edition that he had going, which I did. And the videos are here on my YouTube channel. You can see what I did there. I did a lot of cool stuff for him. And we really bonded. I mean, when you're spending that, just living in the same house together, and then they left me up there alone, then they came back, and, you're hanging out with this guy, and you're really hearing all the great stories. I mean, this guy, in the 50s, 60s, they were paddling. He lived over the bay, and him and his buddies would get on their surfboards, paddle across the bay, get to the island, and then surf all day, and then paddle their asses back home. So you want to talk about fit. It was wild. And these dudes were the dudes. And in the 60s, they ruled the shore with the surfing. And this guy, Bucky Walters and Mongo and all these the Masenko brothers, one of which created Grog's Surf Palace. There is a fucked up funny story. I guess I'll tell you since I'm talking about it. But the reason I bring it up is I hear these stories from these guys. Like, I guess it was Mongo and Buck, some of the other guys, like they drove across the country in like a 53 Plymouth or something with no seats, like sitting on a milk crate, and they were living in a shack growing weed out here and surfing all up and down the coast of these places. Like they were finding waves back then. It was pretty wild stories coming from these guys. And then they were studs, man. These guys were jacked. I mean, Buck alone, he played football. He was like 240 pounds of solid muscle, and he did security for the New York Dolls, and but in New York, and just amazing guys with amazing stories. And I didn't really know these old guys. I didn't. I mean, I knew Greg because he owned Grog's. I didn't know him well. A lot of my friends worked there. Grog's was an amazing surf shop in Seaside Park. And the effed up story is I got out of the Marines, and I'm 21 years old. It's the winter, kind of close to the winter time, I guess. And it was pretty chilly out. The town was dead. And I was walking home, probably from drinking all night at Cleese one night in Seaside Heights. And I'm not proud of this, by the way. I'm not proud of this. I've probably told this story before. But as I walked by it, they had the original, it said Grog's Surf Palace, this wooden sign. It was about, 18 to 20 inches tall. And it was 12, it was close to 18 feet long, probably like 15 feet long, something like that. Grog's Surf Palace. And, it's pretty thick wood sign. And it was down in front of the building because they were repainting it. And I'm, hammered. We all know you don't make the best decisions when you've been consuming alcohol. So I walk past it, I stop in my tracks, I turn around, I look at it, I pick this thing up, I put it across my shoulders, my two arms holding it, walking like Christ with the cross. And I walk up I Street like this. It's like 2:30 in the morning, nobody's around. I walk up the street, I get to the beach, and I walk in the sugar sand. If you know this, the Jersey Shore, the very soft sugar sand with this long ass sign, a mile or more, actually probably more like a mile and a half or more. The town's only 3 miles long, so all the way down to N Street, where I lived on the bottom of this house there, right on the corner of Central and 52 North Ave. I think that's right. Yeah. And I got there and I couldn't get in the apartment. It was just too long. So I opened up a window and I slid it through. Couldn't get through the door. So I slid it through and it went, from all the way through the kitchen into the living room. And, I forgot about it. I passed out drunk. I totally forgot that I did it. And I woke up in the morning. I remember doing all that now, thinking back on it. But when I woke up in the morning, I had totally forgotten about it. And I woke up and here's this sign and I just felt like a jerk. I just was very embarrassed about it. And I didn't think to return it. So another dumb move that you do when you're young is I cut it into 3 pieces. Grog Surf Palace, I stacked it behind the door and that was it. And my close friends that would come over, we were partying and having a good time. I'd show it to them, we'd giggle about it, and that was the end of it. And I had actually forgotten about the whole thing. And I was home 3 or 4 years ago, and my good friend Mark, another great waterman, surfer, stand-up paddleboard guy, a machine. The guy is just jacked, and he's older than me. And he was going to the Surfer Hall of Fame dinner, and they were inducting Greg Masenko into the New Jersey Surfer Hall of Fame, or I don't know if it's just New Jersey surfing, it might have just been the Surfers Hall. I don't know how this works, And I told him that story, and he laughed so hard. He says, I'm telling Greg that story tonight at the dinner. So he did, and apparently they don't care, and it's all good. I always felt like I wanted to make him another sign and get a painter to redo it, and who knows, maybe one day. I'm not dead yet, and neither are they. So maybe we'll get around to that. But that's that story. I did a lot of dumb things. But it was good to talk to him. It was a really good conversation. And Athens, New York is beautiful. And if you go on my YouTube channel here and you look around, you'll find those videos. The thing I was upset about the other day that I mentioned in the video was a thing that happened with my nephew that I think relates, a lot of you people can relate to this. I don't go out of my way to help out strangers because I don't know them. I'm pretty kind to people. I try to help out as much as I can. But if I know you, I am going to try to go out of my way. If you ask me for a favor, I'm going to try to hook you up. My thing is setting people up. I listen to a guy, he's talking about something he needs to have done. I know a guy with those skills. I set them up. It works. It's great. I don't do it for the accolades or anything else. It's just the right thing to do. It's a human thing to do. And my nephew had reached out to me. Now, this kid, I am not a good uncle. I mean, I'm pretty good as far as like I will talk to my nieces and nephews whenever they want to engage with me. It's fine, but I never sought them out. The reason for it was just I lived 3,000 miles away their entire lives. I moved out here in 92, I think, 91, 92. And, excuse me, there was a bunch of reasons why I felt like I had to move out here. You guys have heard some of it before. Part of it was undoubtedly, it was absolutely, absolutely was to get away from my family because there's too much there, man. There's too much drama and backstabbing kind of stuff and talking about each other and a lot of nonsense that I did not want to participate in. So I was a happier person being away from them, other than my father. But, you know, he had this girlfriend and she kind of drove a wedge between us. And then he eventually moved to Greece for the last 5 years of life and he had her with him. Whenever I spent time with him, she was right there and she would just wreck it all the time. It was it was such a bummer. But that was my choice, to come out here and be my own person and get away from all the stuff that was making me an unhappy person. That's what I do. And that's some of the advice I give people all the time. I have a niece, Caitlin, if you're watching, love you. She's adorable. But she's had some issues, man. She's made some bad choices and her life's pretty tough. And my advice to her is, she's done, is get away from the family, go to another place, sort your shit, figure it out, and when you eventually come back to them, you'll have it all together. Because if you have the type of people in your life, whether they're family or not, and you're trying to get ahead, but you've made mistakes, and these people who are supposed to love you and be your family do absolutely nothing but consistently remind you of your mistakes, they keep putting you down, telling you how wrong you are, how wrong you were, and trying to tell you how you should be living your life and everything else. How are you supposed to get beyond that if they're just beating you down all the time? So, which I don't blame them for doing that either in a way, because they're frustrated, right? This is somebody in your life. You see them screw up all the time. This is going to get me to my nephew. I'm talking smack about the family, man. Don't mean to. I love all of them. But just like anybody else on the planet, not everybody's easy to get along with, especially if there's too much of this going on. Myself, here I am talking about me again, I can actually drink and not be a jerk off. This is a compliment that I've been given by many, many people over the years, and I hear it all the time. Mike, you're always you. I'm always me. I don't care who I'm talking to. From hobos to homos, I'm the same guy. I will talk to everybody the same. I'll give everybody the same respect. I'll use goofy vernacular, old school, old world stuff, but they know when it's coming from me with a twinkle in my eye and a wry smile that I'm not serious about that, and they can laugh at it. And I'm very good at making people feel comfortable. So I'm always pretty even-keeled, even if I'm, 3 sheets to the wind. Until it's time to not be nice. And I've said this to you before. There are times. So, but some people just become total jerks, man, when they've been drinking. And they're childish and all, I don't have to explain this to you. You've seen these people. And it's a bummer when it's people you really care about or people you're related to or your best friends or whatever. And then you start, as you get older, it wears on you enough to where you distance yourself from that person because of their behavior. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's actually kind of healthy because you can't change it, Anyhow, as I was saying, my nephew asked me kind of for this favor, and I told him it was conditional that he get a job. Because, he's 27, he still doesn't have a driver's license. He doesn't have any skills yet. He hasn't learned a trade. I don't understand that. I've discussed this with other people from my generation that have kids that age or kids in their families, the same thing. And matter of fact, the guy I called, I set him up. There's a business he could walk to that's several blocks away. It's called Mr. Shed. It's in Huachuca City, and they build sheds that look like little houses with doors and windows and everything. And uh, he's like, yeah, I got a nephew, same thing. Still doesn't drive, doesn't know how to do anything. And I hear this from people all the time. So like somehow this has become acceptable for our youth to not know anything by that age. It aggravates me to no end because I'm cool with him. I don't give him shit. I give him man advice every chance I get when I talk to him. And he's always cool. It seems like it's getting through. He yeses me a lot. I don't want to get too into it because I could tear it apart. Because if you watch this, I don't want to make it feel bad. John, I don't mean to make you feel bad. But, the deal was I was talking to this dude who I called, we talked. Me and my nephew talked. And I said, it's conditional. You got to get the job. There's a place up the street. I'm sure you can go in there. Let me call the guy. He's all excited about it. I call the guy who owns the place. He's like, dude, if he could be in here tomorrow by 8 a.m., he could start working tomorrow. And we're down 2 guys. I say, he doesn't have any skills yet. He says, good. We don't want them to have any skills yet. We want them to come in here, and then we want to train them the way we want them to do it, which was exactly what I wanted to hear. It's exactly like the Marine Corps. You go to Parris Island, you get to the rifle range, most men that go there have bad habits. The women, on average, score higher than the men because they shut up, they focus, and they listen. A lot of guys go down there and they think they know it all already. Same thing with this. And it was great because he was like, I want to help you work on the house. It's like, well, you can't help me work on the house. You don't have any skills. I'd be teaching you everything, and that's fine, but, I want to get stuff done. So he was excited about learning these skills. It was great. So I called up, like I said, the guy's name's Tracy that owns it. I'm talking to Tracy. I'm like, yeah, man, he tells me 8 o'clock, fine. I text Jonathan, be there before 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. He texts me back. I'll be there by 8:50. All right. So several days go by. I don't want to harass him. I don't want to seem like I'm on his ass about it. I'm busy. I'm working my ass off here. Several days goes by. I text him. So what happened? His answer to me is he overslept. This is what happens when you grow up with no man in the house. You know what I'm saying? That's ridiculous, man. That really pissed me off. It put me in a bad mood that day. And I got to pop this toe. And how do you do that? I mean, first, what you just did was you made me look bad. This is why it's hard to recommend people. Because you can recommend somebody for something, and even if they do show up, if they're schmucks or taking a bunch of cigarette breaks or smoking grass on the job or just total fools, makes you look like a jerk. It makes you look like an idiot. And the person that you recommend them to is like, dude, what the hell? This has happened to me multiple times. I was working on a movie one time, and this artist friend of mine, real artist, talented guy, wanted a job. I was the foreman. It was a show called Brothers Garcia for Nickelodeon. And at this point, I was the foreman. I'd worked on it for 3 or 4 seasons. And I got him the gig. And he was the worst friggin' guy, man. He couldn't do anything timely. Everything took forever. I gave him this job to build this set of stairs to get up to this loft space where we were storing stuff for the art department. And I said, dude, don't worry about cutting stairs the way you would do it with a frame and square. I got an easy way to do it. Put a stringer up, get a tape measure, figure your rise. I did it for you. So here's what your rise is. Just get a level at each point and put that on. And then I did make it a little bit more complicated. He could have just put runners on that, screwed it in and put boards on. It would have been fine. I wanted him to slice it out with a circular saw, chip that out, and then set the treads in. But that's straightforward stuff. I could have had that done in 2.5 hours, no problem. It took him like a day and a half. 2 days. And I was just livid with this. Like, what are you just dragging ass, man? That world, any world where people are getting paid by the hour. It's very frustrating. So, but he made me look bad. I never hired him again on anything. And I told him I would never hire him again to his face. So here I am now dealing with the family. So worse than making me look bad, he makes him, my nephew, he makes himself look bad. It's a bad move, bro. So that's why I was upset about that. Now, this thing with my recent guest. I don't feel the need to really, give you guys every little detail about my personal life. I would prefer to remain private about a lot of that stuff. But my friend Corinne was here, and you guys saw her in the videos, and she's awesome. I've known her for like 18 years. But just so you guys know, we're just friends. All right, there's stuff there. It's too complicated to get into, and out of respect for her, I wouldn't get too into that. But I am single, and that's just how that is. Just so you guys know, and I'll pretty much just leave it at that. I will say this. There are things that are said about me, even here on other channels, like through friends of mine. I got my buddy Sabo. He does these videos, these like chat things. He goes live, which I'll probably do at some point. But he's live, and instead of just talking, he's interacting in the comments. He's got friends. He's got like 5 people or so that show up every time in his videos when he's live, and he interacts with them, and he'll talk for an hour, and that's about it. And when he brings me up, he says all the time that Mike Z, he's like a George Costanza type, like the Shallow Hal thing. Oh, she's great. She's super hot, and she's got money and all this, but she's got this one weird toe, and then it's over. A lot of people think I'm like that, and to a certain degree, that's funny to me, and I play into that when they say it to me, and I don't get too into it with them. But that's not really how it is. What it is there's something else there that I might not be able to put my finger on, and because I'm not feeling it that much, those things will jump out at me at that point. Plenty of people I've gone out with that I was really into, that it didn't work out eventually. But when I was into them, they had all kinds of things I could have picked apart about them, but I didn't see that because I had feelings for them. I don't think I'm saying anything here that's some big mystery. I think we're all the same like that. So it's a little weird. I can't be defensive about it. He gets to say what he wants, and I know he's not berating me or trying to make me look bad. He's saying it for the sake of humor, and I have a good sense of humor, so I'm not upset by it, but it's incorrect. So, I do know what I like now that I'm older, I mean, if anybody cares. I do like people that are smaller than me. I like kind of tinier women, and, I'm a sucker for green eyes and a great smile, and cuteness is more important to me than like classical beauty. But beyond that, you got to be cool, man. And don't take yourself too seriously. Have a good sense of humor. The one good thing with Corinne, I mean, she's hyper intelligent. 3 master's degrees, 3 languages, teacher, was a principal. We talked about it. We were so busy talking about other stuff and just doing shit like every waking minute of the day. I didn't get to it, but I wanted to interview her about the education system in Canada. Maybe we'll do that at some point, because she's got a lot to say about it. It's pretty crazy how things work up there. And so our initial connection was cerebral, and that's what I need to have with anybody. I have to have a cerebral conversation. I have to connect with you on that level where we can talk about, like, we'll exchange scientific peer-reviewed papers at times on different subjects that we're into. And she's open-minded about different ideas, and she teaches it to her kids. She told me when she was here that she recently had her kids rip 2 pages out of their book. What class? One of her science books. She's like, that's all bullshit. She's teaching at a private school. So, she's a phenomenal human being. There's just something there for me that's not right, and it's not who she is. It's an interesting thing, but you can't force something. You just can't do that. Either it's there and it works, or it doesn't. But if it doesn't, if that part's not there for one person, it doesn't mean that you can't still be friends and get together and do things and, whatever. My problem with hanging out a little bit with people like that, because Corinne's not the only person I'm friends with that I have that sort of weirdness with, is I don't like, you don't want to lead anybody on either. I think you owe it to the other person in relationships, if you're not feeling it, to let them know so that they can move on and find somebody else who will feel the same way about them that they feel about you. I think that as a mature person, you should do that. But at the same time, that I don't think that means you can't still be friends. I find that women have a harder time with that. I've had a lot of women in my life that really, really liked me, and the timing just wasn't right for me at any given time. And so they chose to totally cut me off because their emotions are too powerful. So they can't be around you if you're not reciprocating the same emotion that they feel for you. And so I'm not upset by it. I'm upset. I guess there's degrees of being upset. I suppose upset is an accurate word. I'm not like emotional over it. Like, oh, I wish I still had this person in my life. I understand their emotions. I understand their feelings. And when I've talked with them, I've said it. I get it. You really care about me. You can't be around me because I don't feel the same way about you. Got it. No problem. You moved on. That's what you needed to do for your own sanity. Totally understand that. So I'm just talking about this in a way because if you're thinking that, that's good. What I've realized by having these little chats with my camera is I'm touching on things with you guys that resonate, and I'm finding that at least 9,200 and something of you that are here, although you're not all watching this, or if you do, you're not liking it that many times. What the hell? What's up with that? I'm speaking in a way and I'm saying things that resonate with you that make you feel like everything's okay. And I think that's the most important thing about what I'm doing and what other YouTubers are doing or podcasters and all of that. I'm going to use a term, it's probably not accurate. I think that there's tribes of us that are working on certain frequencies, basically, of thought processes. And it just feels good when you find somebody that's speaking in a way and touching on things that resonate with you in a logical manner. It makes you feel comfortable. Because a lot of people don't have a lot of people. A lot of people don't have a lot of people. Like, they might not have a lot of good friends in their lives. Family's dead. You're older. There's a lot of older people watching. How you doing? There's a funny thing with that. That's funny to me. It's like people send me stuff from time to time. And I made a joke with one guy recently, Jim. But you're not the only guy. It's like they're cleaning out their junk drawers. They're like, I think you're going through your stuff and you're like, man, I'm not going to be around much longer. And my own kids don't like it. And other people in my family, I don't even like them. But here's this guy. I'll just send him all this crap. But it's actually very cool. It's really neat. It's like Christmas. it's bizarre but fun. And I'm enjoying that. So it's pretty cool. Oh, I made this yesterday. This is for a guy, Kevin. I met him at the meet and greet in Tacoma, and he bought this watch from me, which I bought for myself, and I just made him this. This is all horsehide, hand stitched, lined with calfskin. I did a real nice job on this one, and so hopefully I'll get that to him this week because I need the money. Oh, and because it's St. Patty's Day. Is today St. Patty's Day, or was it earlier? I don't know. I'm actually wearing my Seiko land tortoise with the green dial and bezel insert. So happy St. Patty's Day. And you know what? With that, I'm going to stop rambling. All right, we'll keep this one short today. I hope you don't feel like I'm just wasting your time getting on here and just blathering like this. I wasn't sure. I couldn't just nail one thing down this week because all those things I just mentioned to you guys was just on my mind. And I feel like these Sunday night chats are becoming that. It's like a weekly roundup of thoughts and what happened over the course of the week. But I don't think that's a bad thing. So for now, I'll say goodbye. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Let's start off the week with, the right foot forward. Actually, it's left foot forward in the military. It's always left foot first. Left, right. And be positive. Be nice to one another. Try to help each other out. Hopefully you won't get burned. But here's the thing about that. Inevitably, you're going to try to help somebody out. Inevitably, you're going to get burned. Try not to let that turn you bitter about helping people out. Just accept it as reality. That's just how it is. Not everybody's going to follow through. And it might make you look bad, but you still did the right thing. Like the guy that owns that business, he could be like, this guy called me, his nephew never came in. He's not going to think about that like I wasted his time. He's going to think about it like, man, it's too bad his nephew just couldn't follow through on something. So, because we can't give up on trying to help one another out. You can't give up on that. You have to remain hopeful. I don't care how many times you've been kicked in the nuts. You still have to remain hopeful that you can help someone out. I'm an optimist, eternal optimist. I got a friend back home, John. I mentioned him earlier. He owns Betty and Nick's, and he hasn't said it lately. I got to call him. We haven't talked in a little while, but he'll give me crap about that in a fun way. You can't change anybody. Well, what do you waste your time? But he knows, and he laughs at me. Like, oh, there you're doing it again, because I care. I don't see this as a competition, man. I want you to succeed. I want you to do well. I want us all to do well. Again, it's the Ben Franklin philosophy. Do well by doing good. If you keep trying to do good, you're going to do well. Now, the degrees of well and all that, that's a whole other, it's arbitrary and relative to everybody, and it's different for everybody. But if you just keep trying to do nice things, I just believe it uplifts, and be grateful for what you have. It uplifts you in a way, your spirit, because at least you feel like you're doing the right thing. And you know what? A lot of the time, that's just enough to get you through the day, man. All right? Be good to one another. I'll catch you on the next one.